Okay, title of the video, Rolex and why you might want to boycott them. Now when I talk about boycotting them, this video is not meant for the super wealthy who don't buy watches for any consideration of their artistic merit or their quality or their history. They're buying them simply because they're empty, void, looking to fill the void in their empty lives, very insecure. And for them, a luxury brand watch, a Rolex being the example here, is nothing more than a means for them, a way for them to try and express their value and their status. And they feel the need to do that because they're insecure. Whatever business they're in, some of them probably are worthwhile members of society, but nonetheless they have that insecurity and they feel this need, their egos are weak and they feel the need to flaunt their status by wearing what is to them a fashion piece watch. But there's a whole bunch of other people who aren't super wealthy or just wealthy, but they can just kind of, get the money together for a nice Rolex, maybe not one of the best ones, maybe not one of the worst ones, but something in their bracket that they can just about afford. And it's a big purchase, it's a lifetime purchase, and they're probably into the watch for more reasons than your average fashion watch wearer who's just looking to promote his status. Maybe that's not entirely true. Maybe some people that are stretching to buy the watch are also just trying to express something about themselves because they're insecure as well. There's a whole variety of people out there. But I'd say that they're the ones that might be more interested in thinking, yeah, I'm going to boycott this brand. Don't waste your money on a Rolex if you're pushing yourself to get it. So I saw two videos today, and here's a clip from the first one, which is to do with how Rolex allocate their watches. So you hear about this shortage of supply, and it's a fascinating insight into how Rolex actually allocate their watches. So here it comes. Watch this little clip first. See how Rolex allocate.
To 5% of the watches that I looked at from other brands would need to be returned. And finally, I'm sure a lot of you have stuck around until the end so that you could hear about allocation and how Rolex allocates their watches once and for all. We're gonna put it to rest right here. Everyone who's been into a Rolex boutique knows that they won't just hand out a watch to anyone. So how do they choose who they will allocate the watch to? And they already make somewhere around 1 million watches a year. The actual number is kept very, 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 very secret. Not even a watchmaker who worked for them would know. But I can tell you there's a lot more than 1 million people on this planet that wants a Rolex every year. And that's the reason why they can't just dish out watches when you walk into the boutique. But they would simply not be controlling that supply and demand. So by them choosing who wears their watches and who gets allocated their watches, they can simply control demand a lot better. So how exactly do they choose their buyers? Because you probably have walked in and been rejected. The number one thing that I've personally encountered, because I was in a smaller European city, they really look for a local because that person pours their hard work and money into that local economy, and they are really passionate about the tradition of their city and their language. So they will find people that own local businesses, have lived there their whole life. That is one thing that I noticed when I worked there. Secondly, so they obviously want people of influence wearing their watches because that AD or Rolex can then say, we're the proud AD that sold that particular person that watch. That's often why you see celebrity endorsements, so that's a very obvious reason. But lastly, the one that probably applies to most people watching this video, they really just want to know that you're not going to flip that watch right away. Simply put, you walk into that boutique, you shake hands with the first sales staff that you meet, and you create a relationship with that person. Eventually, if you go back time and time again asking them about their day, the weather, you don't just talk about that watch that you want. Eventually you will get that baseline reference that you want. They're never going to go straight to that ultra rare reference that everyone might want, but they will allocate you that first watch that you ask for eventually. And most importantly, you want to make sure that you show up with that watch, you have a personal relationship with that AD, with that salesperson, and you show them that, hey, I still have that watch that you gave me. When's the next one ready? Now, I know a lot of you are saying it's not that easy, Peter. They're going to make you buy this watch or this piece of jewelry. That is something that we have heard. They're willing to buy something else in the store. Often there's a quota. Take this celebration dial, for example. If it's roughly $7,000 at retail, but it's closer to $20,000 on the market, they're going to make you pay that roughly $13,000. That is definitely a tactic that they use, but it really varies. There's no level of consistency from AD to AD. It depends on who you are, what kind of relationship you have, the kind of attitude you have when you walk in, because most people just walk in the door and say, I want that Rolex. Sorry, sir, or sorry, ma'am, that's on display only, which is not true. All those watches are real and they'll actually sell them. It just depends on who you are.
Right, interesting stuff, eh? That's how Rolex do it, apparently. They do vet people. They say about they want the locals to have first access to them. That may or may not be true in certain locations. But I watched another video by Nico Leonard. He's quite entertaining, actually. He's built his brand up by just being himself. He hasn't kowtowed to any standards that are supposedly make you more acceptable on the internet. He's just done his own thing, got lucky, got a following, and now he's got, I think, 1.57 million viewers. Anyway, he did a review of this guy's watch collection, a $3 million watch collection. Some guy called Iman Gadzi, and he's showing off his watches that he's bought. I had to look him up. I thought he was a footballer maybe, or the son of a rich Arab. I didn't have a clue, never heard of him before, so I looked him up, thinking he was going to be something. Turns out he's nothing. He's, I guess the most charitable description of him could be a social media influencer. He's a social media parasite. He creates nothing, he produces nothing, he is nothing. He just flaps his yap to gullible cretins and has somehow managed to make himself millions of dollars, to the point that he can spunk $3 million on a watch collection over time. So the clip that follows now is a particular part of the clip where he shows off not one, not two, not three, 4 Daytonas, and he mentions how Rolex have approached him each time asking him if he would be interested in this one we've now got available.
Compared to a platinum Daytona, or for example something like this, I love the rose gold Daytona on the Oyster Flex, and I think it comes down to really just the way that the bezel pops on the Oyster Flex, because they do the ceramic bezel, same as what you'd find on a steel Daytona, rather than the bezel that they do on the full rose gold. So out of these, I'm sure you can understand why I just prefer the pop of color with the Oyster Flex, with the steel, or for example right here with the platinum Daytona.
Which would you say is your favorite?
So this is how Rolex allocate watches in reality. You've got a whole bunch of these celebrities, rich people. Some of them do something worthwhile in society. The majority of them are exploiters, or like this guy, a social media parasite. And despite regular folk, some who are stretching themselves to try and buy one Rolex in their life, which they will wear forever and pass on to their son or daughter, rather than give them one watch, they're punting out 4 Daytonas plus the other Rolexes he's got to one individual. That's how Rolex allocate. That's the contempt they have for regular human beings, and like a whole bunch of human beings who work 1,000 times harder than this Iman Gadzi, who doesn't work at all. He just yaps. That's all he does. He yaps, and gullible cretins suck up his shit, and on the basis of that he can afford a $3 million watch collection. So yeah, if you got one reason, or if you needed one reason to boycott Rolex, this would be the reason. See how they allocate their watches. It's obscene. It really is. It turns my stomach that somebody like that, this self-entitled douchebag, is offered watches by Rolex on a regular basis, stupidly expensive watches, and all the ones in between and at each end of the spectrum, while regular folk are going to ADs and being treated with contempt and disrespect. Oh no, we don't think you're quite up to the standard of our watches, we're not going to sell you one. Oh, but this rich media, social media parasite, yeah, we'll keep offering him the latest and the greatest of our brand as and when they become available, because he's special, he's deserving, he merits this special treatment. There's your one reason, if you need just one reason to boycott Rolex. Don't buy a Rolex. I said before that it's embarrassing to be seen wearing a real one, and how much more embarrassing it would be to have paid twice the retail price for one on the grey market. It now actually should make a person feel ashamed to be associated with a brand that behaves like this. There's the evidence, right there in your face. act on it or don't. I would not pretend to know that any other brands that behave better, because I've not researched them or investigated them. But surely there's some out there that you can just go into the shop and buy the watch without this this character personality test. Are you worthy to own one of our watches? Yes, we will do you the favour of letting you give us a buttload of money for one of our timepieces. Yeah. If you're going to wear a Rolex, make sure it's a clone, because then you are sticking it to Rolex and you're making a mockery of everyone who wears a real one, which is as it should be, in my personal opinion. Anyway, hope that entertained you. See you in the next one. Bye!